think we're live. We're at 6:29, and we'll see what's going on here. Is it connecting? We're live. Yay. Okay. Pro Barn Management is now live. Okay, we'll wait and see if some people come on, and go from there.
I'm just trying to get on.
Oh, are you having a hard time getting on?
Yeah.
I got some people on.
Yay!
Yay! Hi, everybody. Okay, should we go ahead and... I have 6:30. We're diving in. Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Sheri Grunska with live Q&A barn management webinar. And we're here because we're going to talk about starting and running a horse boarding business or answer your questions. We're going to talk about anything you want to talk about. And I'm glad you joined us today. You can check out and find more info on www.probarnmanagement.com. I have podcasts on there and also blog posts that I've written. You can find my books there, and you can also go to Pro Barn Management on Facebook, and we're always putting stuff out. And also, just to let you know, for the future, I'm hoping down the road, if people are interested, I'd like to get some guest people here to talk with me about other aspects of running a barn, and to answer real questions and talk about the whole nitty-gritty of it, the real stuff, the stuff that most people don't tell you about when you're going to start a business. So anyways, I'm Sheri Grunska. Welcome to the show, and we're going to dive right in. If you have a question, go ahead and send it in. If you want it to be anonymous, you can text me at 920-205-7518 if you would like to do that instead. Otherwise, I have a ton of questions here that I was asked also, and we're going to start talking about it, okay? I'm going to read. I thought I didn't get a chance. There were so many people tuning in last week and so many cool questions, and I didn't get to answer a lot of the questions that I had received during the week, so I felt like it was important to answer those questions for those people. So we're going to start in. I'm going to read one right now, and we're going to talk about it. So this one is from another person. She's in a different state, and she has a serious question that she thinks will help other people too. I have noticed over the last 20 plus years running barns that gossip is a huge problem in the industry. That is true. I have had people jealous of my accomplishments, so they talk bad about me. I've even recently had other professionals spread rumors about ribby horses at my barn, knowing full well that the horse in question was very ill and is not well and perfect weight. I have taken in horses, 2 that were in their late 20s and starving, and it took a long time to get them back up to weight, even though I have had photos and documentation and vet records, and the gossip runs rampant. How do we as business professionals stop it or discourage people from gossiping? So the question's about gossip. Okay, that is a great question, and I guess there's a couple parts to the whole thing. The long and short of it is only you as the barn owner or the barn manager can stop it, and that might mean cleaning house. You cannot control what people say outside your barn, but you can control the atmosphere and what people are going to say in your stable. If people are saying that a horse is underweight or there's issues, you know, if it's someone in your barn, then you need to talk to them and sit them down. And if that negativity is going to spread and continue going, do you really want to spend all your time and energy dealing with it? You know, let's talk about what's most important in your life. And for me, I decided like 5 years into it that I wasn't going to deal with it anymore. You know, it's hard for women to do this, especially women, to just say I've had enough and say I'm not going to tolerate that and lay it on the line. But you have to. People sometimes can be cruel. They can say things that they don't understand what's going on. They could start talking about other boarders, which can really kill the atmosphere in your stable. And I'll be honest with you, I've asked people to leave because of those reasons. I'm not going to have it in my barn. And if it starts to grow and get to the point where it's out of control, then you need to nip it. And you have every right as the owner of the barn to do that. You have to remember that your stable is the place where everybody goes to enjoy their horse, to have camaraderie with other people, to achieve their goals, to have it be a really positive atmosphere. And if you are letting that ruin the atmosphere in your stable, that is your fault. You have to change that. And that might mean having a barn meeting and saying, 3 strikes, you're out. You know, I think we're at a time in our society, I think it was a lot different 30 years ago. I've noticed it even in the last 15 years, how things have changed, and people just keep pushing and pushing and saying things, and they don't have a filter. But you have every right to ask someone to leave if they're going to ruin the atmosphere at your business. What happens outside the stable, people that aren't at your barn, there's 2 things to look at. I've had people call me. I had one barn owner in particular where a previous boarder was saying things on Facebook, negative things, which was going to hurt her business about the care of the horses. So what I suggested to her is to contact her attorney and have her attorney take care of it you know, this person was trying to ruin her business, and that is, you just can't have that happen. So if it gets really bad, you may have to contact an attorney. I've had to several times over the last 15 years for a lot of different reasons, and it is not fun, but you have to nip it. And I'm not going to say it's fun or it's easy while you're going through it, but that's why you have a good attorney to take care of that, because people can get upset or they can judge, they can say things. But if you have horses that are really thin because they came that way and you're working on getting their health, I would assume that the people at your stable understand this, and there shouldn't be a problem. But if there is a problem, then you need to nip it. You're the one that has to do it. I can't do it for you, and no one else can do it for you. You have to do it, and it might be cleaning house, which is just kind of how it is in life. You just sometimes have to clean house and say goodbye. So I hope that answers your question. Do you have any? Okay. So remember, if you have a question, go ahead and send it in. Okay. This question came, and it says, how do I transition from a boarding barn with mostly trail riders to a training barn with only 1 trainer that is housed there? I know we are going to lose many people, and with this change, what is the easiest way to do this? That is a really good question. So this person, they have a regular boarding barn with different disciplines, more casual, trail riders, people that just ride for fun, and they want to go into a training barn. Usually with the training barn, you have usually just 1 trainer, maybe 2, but usually just 1 head trainer. A lot of those horses are in competition. It's a different atmosphere, definitely a different atmosphere. So if you're going to change in that, I would be very upfront and just write a letter, explain the direction your stable is going, and even have a barn meeting, and you just have to say it how it is. You just have to spit it out. You may not feel comfortable at the time doing it, but you got to do it. It's just part of a business, and businesses change all the time. I was just talking to another barn owner earlier this week, and they are also changing direction and what they want to do with their stable, and that means that it might not be a good fit for some of those boarders anymore. And it happens in businesses. It doesn't just happen in boarding stables, it happens in every business. And so you need to just, I really suggest writing a real thought out, written letter, and send it to everybody, or have a barn meeting and just explain. And then if people are going to leave, give them enough notice. Say, these are the transitions we're making. Maybe give them 4 months to say, this is our goal in 4 months. You're welcome to stay, but we are going to be a training barn. If you need those stalls for training horses and you need to give them a notice, then I would suggest giving them at least a 3-month notice so they can find a new place for their horses. It's hard to move horses to another place. It's very emotional, especially in the winter. It is a very hard thing to move horses. Around here in Wisconsin, a lot of the barns around here are completely full. So give them enough notice where they can find a nice place to move to. It's not easy, but it happens. It's just growing pains, it's changes, and it just happens. We went through that, a change like that in our stable, and we lost a lot of horses and clients, but the new changes ended up being really good. It wasn't easy while it was happening, and I even lost some money financially, but it was much better in the long run. So I hope that helps. Okay, do you have any questions?
Sure.
Okay.
The first one is, how do you deal with late payments?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, I'm probably going to sound, you're going to think, I can't do this, or I'm going to sound kind of harsh, but I'll kind of give you a little bit of a backstory. So when we first opened our contract, when we did have a contract, it was said that everybody had to pay by the 10th of the month. And in my little world, I just kind of thought, oh, everybody will pay at the first. And it's not the way it works. You'll have some people that will pay early, some people that will pay right on the first, and then you'll have some people that will trickle in a few days after, and then you will have some people that will wait all the way to your last date. And ours was the 10th. So then I moved it to the 5th because all my bills were due by the 10th. So I was running always tight on how to pay those. The biggest change I made in the first couple of years is learning to learning to enforce a late fee, and that is what changed everything. I had people that were late all the time, and I seriously would find myself getting angry because they would be out in the barn riding their horses every single day, but I wasn't getting paid. And so I'd go out there, do chores, and I would literally feel myself storming back up to the house, because I was mad because they were out enjoying their horse and they didn't pay me. And I needed to change how everyone thought about it, and I also needed to enforce a late fee. I needed my boarders to realize that that's how I get paid. That is my paycheck for taking care of their horse for the whole month. And that was something I had to address. And then I had to enforce the late fee. If you have a late fee in your boarding contract and you're not enforcing it, it is worthless. Absolutely worthless. It doesn't mean anything. So I had to enforce the late fee, and the very first time I did it, where I told the person was late, the board was due on the 5th, and they still on the 6th had not paid me. And I sent them a text and I said, please add on 5% onto the total board bill. And I was sick to my stomach, and I thought, oh, they're going to think I'm this awful person. They're going to leave my barn. I was worried about losing boarders, and I had it all backwards. Instead of me being worried about losing boarders, I thought, wait a minute, they haven't paid me for the services I've given them. They should be worried about me asking them to leave. I had it backwards. So now what I do, well, those first couple times when I started charging late fees, it kind of upset people. And I had to get them to realize that, why are you upset? Because I didn't do anything wrong. You didn't pay your bill. And I'm still taking care of your horse even though you haven't paid your bill. And I have bills to pay. After I kind of got people in the swing, and I'm sure they were talking, and they probably said I got a late fee, I've learned over the years now, I keep it really super, just not emotional on the 4th, when it's the 4th, and ours goes to the 5th. That's our grace period. From the 1st is due, if the board is due, and then the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th is our grace days. And after the 5th, they get a late fee if they're late. So what I do is on the 4th, if I have anybody that's late, I try to send a really nice text and say, hey, just a reminder, tomorrow is the 5th for your board. I haven't had anyone late with board in a long time. a very long time. And usually, if you charge someone a late fee once, they're never late again. And I've never had anyone really leave because of that, because they're the ones at fault. They're the ones that are not paying their bill. And you also have to get your boarders to understand it's no different than your phone bill or your electric bill or any other bill you get. If you were late, you're going to be charged a percentage. And that is really important to get them to understand. It's the same thing. It's not personal, it is business. It's not emotional, it's not personal, it's a business. You're running a business. So if someone is late, I text them a very nice thing and say, hey, you're late on your board, please add on this amount, and I'll send them the amount they owe me, the 5%, and they add it on. And I've not had anyone get ugly with me or anything about it since those early days. It kind of puts you in a little bit of an awkward situation sometimes if you see them in the barn, and you have to just separate all that and say, you know what, they're nice people, they're great boarders, they were late once, it's okay, and they paid their late fee, and you move on. You don't keep bringing it up. And usually if you charge a late fee once, you don't have a problem again, because they don't want to pay that late fee, and they know you're serious. So charge the late fee. That's all I got to say. Okay.
Yeah. Do you want another one?
Do you have another one?
I have two more.
Okay. We have a lot of questions here. Let me grab one here.
Okay.
Just because we have someone, let's see here. I'll just go ahead and here's one. I run and own a successful lesson and boarding barn. With closing for 2 months for COVID-19, I have realized how burned out I am. Wanting coaching on how to still run a business and make money but not be tired and cranky. Wondering what to do. Okay, so this happened a lot. I saw this on Facebook a lot in the spring when all the barns across the country, the entire United States, everybody shut down. The one thing that kept going was the care for the horses. The animals still had to be cared for. And if I can say one thing really quick off the cuff, I hope as barn owners and managers you realize how important your job is now. Same as farmers. The hay still had to be made, the grain still had to be purchased, the bedding still had to come. We still had to run everything as normal. Even though horse shows stopped across the United States, racing stopped, everything else stopped, the horses still had to be cared for. So you are essential, you are important, and you have to keep going no matter what's going on in this crazy world, because the horses have to be cared for. So you need to understand your value so much, and I hope you do. Now, the other part of that is people were starting to realize, horse trainers and barn owners, managers are starting to realize, because I was seeing it on Facebook, how burnt out they were. Because once you open up a horse operation, it becomes almost like a hamster on a hamster wheel. You just keep going all the time. It just never stops. And it's because the animals are always there. You always have to have someone taking care of them. And everything kind of stopped except for the care of the horses. So if you feel like you're burnt out and you want to slow down, then do it and make changes. I tell people all the time, make a list of what you love about your job, what you don't like about your job, things you'd like to change. Find someone, a mentor. You can contact me. I talk to people all the time, and find out ways to simplify your life. More horses does not always mean more money, and sometimes getting rid of a few horses is just unbelievably fantastic. It slows things way down. When we had the most horses here, we had 42 horses. We're down to 34 horses. I love it. I'd like to go down a little bit more, as you know, if people leave in the future. It makes my job so much easier, and I have a life again, and my life is a lot simpler. So simplify, and that means start thinking about the things that are really important and things you can change. And this is the time to do it. Horse shows are at a real minimum right now. Things are really still are slow. Do it now. These are the times to do it before everything ramps back up again. So it's a great question, and I hope that helps. Okay.
Okay, are there any college courses or classes or anything of the sort that you recommend taking before starting a boarding business?
Okay. I think there are equine classes all over the country, and I think the more studying and learning you do always is great, but above all else to take a business class, because what happens is people get into this business and they find out right away they're losing money, and you might be an expert on taking care of horses, but your business skills might need some help. I know mine did, and the worst thing you can do is get yourself into a financial bind where you can't afford to pay people to help out, and then you're getting yourself burnt out. So I would recommend business classes. I would go to different barns that are successful and see how they do things. The more stables you can go to, the better. We do a couple workshops here at our barn in the spring and summer, and people come here from all over for the weekend, and we show them our operation. We talk about everything, and we give you a really honest look at the financials so that you can start to mold your business model for what you want. So take as many classes as you can, but the thing that's important about it is you have to realize that there is more to it than just caring for horses. You have to decide what kind of barn you want and what kind of clients you want and what the market can bear for what you want to charge for board. So those are a lot of things that if the college isn't teaching that, those are important things, and that's why I wrote my book, A Step-by-Step Guide to Starting and Running a Successful Horse Boarding Business. And I'll put this out in case you haven't seen it, because I talk about all that in here, because it's even important to think about things like if you are a show barn and the horses are in all day, you're going to go through so much more shavings, so much more labor. If they're going to go outside during the day, it's going to also change the dynamics. And what are you going to do for water in the winter? Here, I'll let you, if you can't see that. It's a huge book. It's being used in colleges right now for equine programs. And I talk about all that in there because you really need to wrap your head around what kind of boarding stable you want, and then what does that look like for the chores and the maintenance and to keep the barn going. And that way, my big thing is I'm here, I don't want you to lose money. We lost a lot of money at the beginning. We worked second jobs because we didn't want to lose our farm. And I don't want you to go through that. I want you to be successful. And the biggest thing is talking about the money part of it, because people are unprepared. Usually the thing people are the most shock that I see people get themselves into is how much hay horses eat and how much the hay is. And we all know what to feed a horse, but when you're feeding 25, 30 horses, and you have different size horses, or you have young horses that need more hay, or you're feeding different types of horses, you have draft horses, you have old horses, that also plays a factor. And every horse represents a dollar amount, and you have to decide how much of that dollar amount is going to come off that board so that you can live, and how much is going towards bills. And my book really goes into that. I try to take it apart, every little section, so that you can really think it through, so that you can start off with a really good foundation. So I hope that helps.
I've got one more.
Okay.
What are some tips for improving air quality during bad months where the horses need to be kept in and it's too cold to keep the doors open?
Well, it kind of depends on your stable. So our barn is not heated, and it has a very high roof, and we have a lot of airflow even in the winter. So we have good airflow. We don't bed heavy, and we clean our stalls very early in the morning. If you have a barn that's heated, you probably have a lower ceiling, and to keep that barn heated. And so if the horses are in, you're going to have that urine smell. You may have to clean the stalls twice a day if that's what you want to offer as a business, but you have to remember that if you're going to do that, there's a price tag with that. That's super important. So you might want to think about that. And what I would do is go to different stables and see how they're set up, depending on what kind of barn you want, whether you want a heated barn or a regular barn. Like ours is, it gets cold in there. But the air quality is really good. It's very airy. We don't have walls in between, well, I should say, we don't have solid walls in between our stalls. So the horses can see each other with the stall grills, and that also helps airflow go through. So you don't walk into our barn, and it really never smells like urine. On Sundays is the only day we don't clean stalls. We let the boarders clean if they want, and once in a while you may get a little bit of a urine smell because the horses, especially if they've been in, because some people don't come out to clean their stalls on those days, and some people do. But we really just don't have a problem with it. In fact, that's one of the things people are surprised about, is they'll go, gosh, it just doesn't smell like urine. But I think it helps that we have a high roof, and we clean very early in the morning. And the horses are out most of the day. We get the horses out as much as possible. When they're in all day long, it's definitely, you're going to have more poop, more urine, but we haven't had that problem. I would definitely, where you're at, I don't know where you're located, but I would tour other barns. I would go in your area, see what barns have done. I know for us it's worked great with having a higher roof. But, you know, you have a cold barn then, and so it's great for the horses. The horses love it. It's not a huge temperature change when they're going outside, and they do just fine. But if you have a low ceiling, you're going to have, you'll probably have some problems with that, and you'll have to keep it much cleaner, and you have to decide how you want to address that with your boarders and what that's going to look like financially. Because, again, it's going to be more work if you're going to clean the stalls twice, and there needs to be a fee for that. So I hope that helps. Okay, so we'll go ahead and okay, I'm going to read this to you. This is kind of a long one. Hi, Sheri. We purchased a facility along with boarders, and we found out by the second month we were losing money. The numbers did not add up to what we thought. And now we need to make a lot of changes, and it's been really difficult because of the boarders that have been here for many years. What is the best way to move forward? We need to change the business. We don't want to lose our shirts. Any advice? So I think one of the biggest problems I run into when people get into a boarding stable when they buy one is exactly this. They were given a price. They bought it. They were told this is what we charge per month. This is kind of the estimate of the money you'll make. And they're finding out they're losing money. And now they want to change things. That happens all the time. It happens all the time. And you're going to have to just revamp things. You might have to have a barn meeting and say, look, we're losing money. The thing your boarders need to understand is it doesn't do any good for you to go out of business. If you go out of business, it doesn't help anybody. It's just, so they have to understand that if you are losing money and things were not maybe what you thought they were going to be when you opened up, you're going to have to make changes. Are people going to get upset? Probably. There'll be some people that will get upset, and then there'll be other people that will be okay with it. You cannot please everybody, and you shouldn't try. You should do exactly what's best for you and your family and your business. And the right people will come to your barn if you have a turnover. Every barn that opens up has a turnover. We did when we first started. When we first opened up, in the first 2 years, we had a lot of turnover because I was making so many changes, and I had not purchased a place. We built a brand new barn from the ground up, and I still had a lot of problems. So when you go and you buy a place and it's already established and you have all these boarders that are used to something, and some of them may have been there for 10 years, and now you're making changes, they're going to struggle with that. And I get it. It's the element of the unknown. But the point is, the best thing you can do is be open and honest, and you're going to have to go over numbers, and you're going to have to make changes pretty quickly, otherwise you're going to start really losing money. It's not easy, but it happens a lot, and you just take it one step at a time. And you always have to remember that no matter how beautiful a place is, if it's not set up correctly for chores, for hay, for bedding, for grain, for labor, for getting the horses outside, getting them back in, if it's not set up correctly, and for making it the easiest possible thing you can do for a job, for doing it daily, it doesn't matter how beautiful the place is, because you're going to lose money, and you need to get that all under control. And that's why it's so important to look at how a place is designed if you're going to buy it. Look at what it's set up for. If you don't have good storage for your hay where you can keep it close to where all the horses are, and I'm really a big person, if you live in a state where the weather gets cold, and you have a lot of, you could have snow, a lot of, all 4 seasons. If you don't have a self-contained stable where everything is all under one roof, it is going to suck. If you have to go outside to get your bedding or your hay during the weather. So these are all things that I talk about and I tell you to look at before you purchase a place, because you're going to feel really fresh and feel like you can handle anything until about the 2nd month, and then you're going to start to think, oh wow, this is hard. And after a year you might be completely like, I'm done. And that's what happens. That's why so many people, there's turnover in boarding stables. They get tired of it. It's hard when the weather's bad. So think about all these things if you're looking to buy a new place or a place that's existing, and if you're going to build. So any questions? Okay, I'll go on here and let me see what we got here. Okay, so this is from Alabama. My husband and I have a heart for senior horses. We would like to start a retirement senior rescue. I currently see that I've been checking. I see there's a market for that type of business. And tell me what your thoughts are on location, and can I run this as a nonprofit? So I love senior horses too, especially as I've been doing this a long time. I love the old horses. Okay, so is there a market for it? Honestly, I think there is, but it depends on your area. I would check around and see what's out there. The question is location important for a senior horse type stable? And that is a good question. I'll be honest with you, if you're going to take boarders who have very old horses, and I'm talking about once they hit their 20s and they're getting close to 30, a lot of those horses probably, I would say quite a few of them probably are not being ridden hardly at all anymore. They might have health issues. You're going to be dealing with a lot of health issues. In that situation, you might not have owners that come out as much, not like a training barn where they're going to be going to shows and doing this, where they're out every day, they're working their horse. When you get these old senior horses, the people are looking for a place that's going to take care of them, but the owner may not come out all the time, and you have to decide if you're okay with that. So I'll give you an example. I have quite a few senior horses at our barn now. They've been here forever, and they're starting to get up there in age. And we have a few owners that are not here. Some of them go down south for the winter. Some of them just call, or they'll text me, and they trust me to take care of their senior horses. And I have no problem with that at all, because the communication is always there. The shots get done, the feet get done. They are paying me to take care of their horse. And I honestly don't have a problem with it, so you have to decide if you're okay with that. So in that sense, for people that travel or they go away for 3 months during the winter time, or they don't come out as much, location isn't as important because they're not in the area anyways. And so you have to figure that out and decide if that looks good to you. I definitely think there's so many horses living longer than they have been before, and they need good care, and they always don't do well being with maybe a lot of younger horses. They need a quieter herd. We had our oldest horse here was 34, and at the end, his last couple of years, we kept him with just one other horse, and he lived a quiet life. He didn't need to be in a bigger herd with a bunch of young geldings anymore. You know, his eyesight was failing him. He was stiff when he walked. He just needed a quiet place. We've always had kind of one herd that's been like 1 or 2 horses that have always been really senior horses. It's worked really great. If you're going to set up a senior care place like that, I would suggest trying to make it a little bit smaller in herd size. Some of your horses might have eyesight problems. We have 3 horses at our barn right now that are having vision issues. And so I have to think down the road what that's going to look like if they start to really lose their sight in a deeper way where they can't see very good. So those are things that happen a lot of times with these older horses. A lot of times they need special feed. Sometimes you have to wet their hay, or you have to make mash for them. So I do think there's a need for it, because a lot of the stables that are more or less training barns or general boarding stables, some of those places have a more active barn, and they probably have a lot of younger horses where they're riding, they're doing a lot of other stuff. So I think there's a need for it, but you'd have to check your area and see what the economy's like and all that, because there's a cost that goes with that. You're going to have a lot more issues, and you need to be paid for that. The other part of the question was, can I run this as a nonprofit? Honestly, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm assuming if you're collecting money from a boarder, then you cannot. But I would check with an accountant and an attorney and find out for your state how that works, because I have no idea how it works for there. But if you're collecting money as payment, then you're not a nonprofit. So that's the best I can tell you on that. If I was going to run something like that, I would contact my attorney and I would contact my accountant and make sure I was doing everything correct for the state of Wisconsin. So that you'll have to check out. But I hope that answers your question on that. And more power to you. I love senior horses. My mare, our mare is in her 30s now, and she's really slowing up. And we've had her forever. But it's sweet because she's so quiet, because when she was younger, she was a pistol. So anyways, I hope that answers your question.
I have one more.
Okay.
What profit margin do you want to aim for on a full care boarding stable?
Oh, wow. That's a good question. First of all, I'm not going to give you an exact number on that, a percentage on that. I'm going to look at it more differently from, when you're doing full care, what exactly are you going to have in full care? This is where people get hung up. When we estimated for our stable and what we were going to make for a profit, we had to estimate in what it would be like if we had empty stalls and could we still make a profit. So you want to look at it from that too, is that you're not going to have, you always want to look at it, if you're full, great, but if you have 5 stalls empty, can you make it? And so look at it from that point of it too. And then the other part of it is, what are you going to add in there for full care? Because there's a lot of things in there that you could be profitable at, but if you don't have it set up quite right, you might not, and then you'll realize at the end of the month you could bring in $15,000 for the month, but your bills are coming out to, after you pay employees and labor and all that, insurance, you're $1,500 short. Boy, wouldn't it be nice to be able to put away, $1,000 a month just in your savings account for emergencies, and then have everything paid. Also, is your profit margin going to be including like your personal, is it going to be a full-time job for you? Our barn also pays for our house payment. It pays for everything. It pays for our car insurance. Our numbers are figured out so that everything is paid through this business, everything. So you need to look at it like that too. I can't give you an exact quote number, and I don't even know if a business class said you had to have a 5% profit margin. What I found is once you start putting together your business plan and you're doing all of the numbers, then you're going to see, can I live on $1,000 a month at the end of all of it? Or can I live on, are you going to have $2,000 a month extra? So when I wrote our business plan in my book for you to read, for you to look at, these are all things we go through. We talk about every single part of the profit of it. And, if you're making $100,000 a year, or when I say, if you're bringing in $100,000 a year, if you need to live and you have a house payment and car insurance, well, then you're going to want, a $50,000, you're going to want a 50% profit margin to live on all that. So you've got to figure out what all your bills are. And that's, I guess, how I'm going to answer that. I probably doesn't sound as clear. I would need 2 hours to sit down and look at everything with you in numbers. But I guess what I'm saying, if you're bringing in $100,000 a month, a year, from the boarding, but you have a house payment, you have bills, is that able to cover it all? And your profit would be everything that your profit would be to pay your house payment, to, if you have a car loan, your car insurance, anything that's not of the business, that all goes to your profit. Just like if you got a paycheck, and if you got a paycheck from your regular other job, you may think, oh, I got $1,500 for 2 weeks. And that's great, but how much of it's left out after you pay all your bills? So you have to think about what your bills are. So I guess I can't give you an exact answer on that, because to me, it's just more complicated, and people forget so much of the stuff that goes into it. Okay. And what time is it? So
7:12.
Okay, so we have a couple more minutes, and here's a question. I'm wondering if you've ever dealt with a boarder that just dumps his or her horse off at your facility. I'm currently dealing with this exact situation. The horse is a bit high-strung and needs to be worked with. We've contacted the owner after months of just watching the horse sit in a stall. We've told them they need to work on a plan to start working with their animal. The horse reminds me of a child crying out for attention. I'm at my wit's end. Have you ever had this happen? I don't understand why someone would pay board on an animal just to ignore them. They have never come down unless the board is due. Okay, I don't know more than what I'm getting in this question, so I have a couple thoughts going through my head and a question back. The first one is, it says, we've contacted the owner after months of just watching the horse sit in a stall. So from that sentence, I'm assuming that your horses either don't go outside or go outside very little. We don't have that problem here because our horses go outside every day. every day. So I don't have a horse sitting in a stall. I have some owners that don't come out here, but the horses do fine because they're outside all day long. We get them out early in the morning. They're out by sometimes 6:45 in the morning, and they're out all day long. So they're able to move and be a horse. So we don't have that problem. If you have your barn and you have horses that are in all day long, then you need to tell the owner they need to either have someone come and work the horse, get the horse out. You can tell them to leave your barn. I'll just be honest with you. You can ask them to leave your stable. And if it's not a good fit for them because you don't want the horse sitting in there. I think that probably happens more than you know. There will be people that will disagree with me and they'll say, oh, the owner of the horse has to come out all the time. That's irresponsible and da-da-da. I don't look at it like that. Life happens. People get married. People get sick. There's lots of changes going on. And I don't agree that the owner of the horse has to come out all the time. If it's a young horse, a baby, maybe a yearling, a 2-year-old, then yeah, if they're not going to come out and handle the horse, even though I'm handling the horse in the morning and at night, if that horse is getting unruly, then they need to have a trainer. And I've done that where I've told them you have to have the horse in training because the horse is becoming a little bit of a monster. And so it depends on the age of the horse, but I would never allow a horse to sit in a stall ever with no one doing anything with the horse. So I guess I would look at it like that. I have seen people on Facebook who have said that they feel it is irresponsible to own a horse and never go out and see it. You know what? I'm not here to say what people can say whatever they want. But, we need to get real with life. And I have 4 horses, and my kids are busy in college and doing stuff. And, my horses don't get used, but they go out every day. And, you can be super extreme like that if you want, and that's fine. But real life happens. People get married. All of a sudden, you can have a horse owner, and she's pregnant, and she can't come out. And then she's going to have a baby, but she wants to keep her horse. So think of this when you're setting up your stable on how you want to do it, but we just don't have that problem because our horses go out every day. And if you need to talk to someone because it's bothering you, then it might be a thing to ask them to leave and to find a barn so that you don't have to deal with it. So first of all, decide what kind of stable you want and what you want. And if you're going to deal with someone not coming out, then you might have to say it's time to part ways if they're not going to come out, especially if your horses sit in the stalls all the time. So that's super important to think about. We had a couple situations years back. We had a lot of weather that was really bad in the winter, and the horses were in for like a week and a half. And I had a couple horses where I had to call the owners and say, we got to get the horses out. They can pay me to get the horse out in the arena and walk them, turn them loose, or they usually buddy up with someone to do that. But the horses were getting crazy in their stalls. So I have no problem saying that to people, and if they don't like it, then they'll go to a different barn that they can do whatever they want. And there's so many boarding stables out there and so many people doing different things that's why it's so important as a horse owner to find a barn that fits your needs and what you want to do, because it doesn't do any good to get mad at the barn owner because they said no to you. That's not their fault. It's their business, and they can do that. You'd be better off to find a stable that you can do what you want if that helps. So I'm kind of cut and dry that way. So I hope that answers that. So,
another question.
Okay.
Do you require new boarders or new incoming horses to have a health certificate, Coggins, and or vaccination records?
Yeah. So every horse that comes here has to have a Coggins, and their shots and all that. You don't know where those horses have been, and so you want to make sure you have all that set up ahead of time, especially the Coggins. And I had a situation a couple years ago where the lady had a horse, and the place that it was at, they didn't have the shot records, and she had to contact the vet, and then she was worried because there was an outbreak of strangles at the stable where she was at. So the horse had to stay there a little longer in quarantine. And so yeah, you want to make sure that you ask those questions. As the barn owner, you can ask the questions, because remember, you are making decisions that are going to affect every other horse in your barn. And there's no guarantees. You can do everything perfect and still something can happen. I'm not saying that things can't happen, but try to minimize it by trying to cover all the bases. So yeah, I do require all that. If horses are coming from other states, they're going to have special certificates for that. And yeah, it's your right. You have every right to do that and ask all that. It's no different than taking your dog to a kennel when you go on vacation or something. They want to have make sure that the dog has their certain shots and stuff. So yeah, it's a good question. So okay. I think we are just about done. You guys have been awesome. I want to thank you for joining us. A lot of great questions. And we'll be here again next Monday. Remember, you can go to probarnmanagement.com. Check out my books. I've written 7 books, and a lot of them are on barn management, but especially a step-by-step guide. It'll really help you in trying to figure out what kind of stable you want, and especially the financial part of it. I guarantee you it'll open your eyes to a lot of things that you probably hadn't thought about. And we'll see you on Facebook, and have a blessed week, and we wish you all the best in your horse business. And thank you so much. Bye.